In most languages, when something's in the past, it's just in the past. But Arabic is different. The past isn't just one single thing. It actually has all these different shades of meaning. It's not just about what happened, but how it happened, when it happened, and believe it or not, even how you feel about it. So today, we're going to unpack the incredible depth of the Arabic past tense. I mean, just think about it in English for a second. There's a world of difference between he went and he had gone, right? That one little change completely shifts the timeline of a story. Well, Arabic takes that idea and just runs with it, building this amazing system where just one extra word can add all these layers of meaning about time, about how long something took, and even about how sure you are that it happened. And this is where it gets really cool. Arabic grammar doesn't just stamp an event with past. It digs deeper. It asks, okay, but was it way back in the distant past? Or was it something that used to happen all the time? Or maybe it just finished like a second ago. The language gives you these incredibly precise tools to answer those questions and paint a much, much richer picture. So let's start with the three big ones, the most common forms of the past tense. You can think of these as our foundation. Once you get these down, you'll start to see how they combine to express some really complex and beautiful ideas.
First up, we have the past perfect, which is called Mazi bodied. This one's for an action that was completed a long time ago. It's the difference between saying I ate and saying I had already eaten by the time the guests arrived. See that? That little change just pushes the action way further back in time.
And the best part? The way you form it is just so simple and elegant. You take your standard past tense verb, like dhahaba, which means he went, and you just pop the word kana right in front of it. That's it. Kana dhahaba. All of a sudden, it doesn't mean he went anymore, it means he had gone. You've just pushed that action deeper into the past. For anyone who knows Urdu, this is going to feel really familiar. It's a perfect match for saying vo gaya tha. That tha at the end is doing the exact same job as kana. It's marking the action as being more distant, further in the past. Okay, next up is the past continuous or madi istimrari. Now, this tense is so useful. It's for things that were ongoing or were a habit in the past. It's how you'd say something like, he was writing all day, or he used to write poems back in college. It's about duration. Now, check out this formula. This is a really fascinating bit of grammar. You still use that word kana, but this time you pair it with a present tense verb. So yaktabu, he writes, becomes kana yaktabu. You're literally mixing the past with kana and the present with yaktabu to create this idea of a continuous action that was happening in the past. He was writing. Isn't that clever?
And again, the Urdu equivalent, vo likhta tha, nails this continuous feeling perfectly. All right, on to our third and final foundational form.
So our third core tense is the present perfect, or Mazi Qareeb. This isn't for something that happened last week or last year. This is for an action that just happened. It's something that was completed in the very recent past, so it still feels connected to right now. For this one, we get a new helper word, qad. When you stick qad in front of a simple past verb, it shifts the meaning from he went to he has gone, or he has just gone. It kind of pulls that past action right up to the present moment, and it often adds a little bit of emphasis, like you're confirming that, yes, this definitely happened. The Urdu equivalent here, wo gaya hai, reflects this perfectly. It tells you the action of going is done, but its relevance is right now. It's very current. Okay, so we've got our foundation set. Now for the fun part. Let's start building on it. Arabic also lets you use the past tense to express your own attitude or perspective. I'm talking about things like doubt, wishes, or what-if scenarios. This is where the language gets incredibly expressive. Let's start with what's called the past doubtful, or maldi shakia. This is the one you use when you aren't totally sure about something that happened in the past. It's like saying, perhaps he wrote, or maybe he wrote. And right next to that, we have the optative past, madi tamannai. This is for expressing a wish or even a regret about the past, like, if only I had succeeded. Now, both of these forms use a special helper word, and they share a really interesting and important rule. So the key here is a rule that connects both of these feelings. The word for doubt, la'alla, and the word for wishing, laita, they have this one very specific requirement. You can't just put them right before a verb. It doesn't work. As you can see in the examples, you have to slide a noun or a pronoun in between them. That is a super important piece of the puzzle to remember. All right, let's keep building on this and talk about conditionals. The conditional past, or madi shartiya, is how you create those classic if-then statements about the past. We're talking about hypotheticals, things like, if you had studied, then you would have passed.
Now, building these can look a little complex, but the logic behind it is actually beautiful. Use the particle lao for your if, and usually la for your then, but look really closely at that example. By adding kunta, which comes from our old friend Kana, to that first part, you're not just saying if you memorized, you're saying if you had already memorized. You're actually creating a past perfect condition. How precise is that? It's amazing.
Okay, all this theory is great, but let's see how these rules actually change the meaning when they're out in the wild. Looking at real examples, especially from a text as deep and meaningful as the Quran, really shows us why these little details matter so much. All right, take a look at this verse. The key phrase for us is kanu yazlimun. Now, does that pattern ring a bell? Think back to those first 3 foundational forms we talked about. That's it. It's kana plus a present tense verb. That's our past continuous. So what this means is that the verse isn't talking about a single one-time act of injustice. No, it implies this was a continuous, ongoing state of wrongdoing. The choice of tense here adds this whole other layer of profound meaning. It's not just what they did, it's what they were doing. Here's another really powerful one. We see that particle law, which we just learned is for conditionals, for if. But if you look at the full context of the verse, there's no then clause that follows it. So what's going on here? And this is just a perfect example of how flexible and expressive Arabic can be. When law shows up like this, all by itself, without a result clause, its job actually changes. It stops being about if, then, and it transforms into this powerful expression of a deep wish or a regret. It becomes what's known as tamanna. So the meaning completely shifts to this powerful longing statement, if only they knew. So as we start to wrap this up, I think it's pretty clear that these aren't just some boring, obscure grammar rules you have to memorize. They're actually the very tools that give the Arabic language its incredible texture and its profound depth.
But why bother? I mean, why go to all the trouble to learn these different shades of the past? Why does it really matter if something happened versus had been happening?
So what's the big takeaway here? It's really about precision. Understanding these forms lets you grasp the author's exact intended meaning. And that's absolutely vital when you're reading something as important and layered as the Quran. Ultimately, this is the difference between just knowing the words on a page and truly, deeply understanding the soul of the language. In the end, it all comes down to this simple but honestly pretty profound idea. A single word, a word like kana or qad, can completely change the timeline, the context, and even the emotion of an entire sentence. And that right there is the real elegance and the real power of the Arabic language. Thanks for joining me.